tariff threat looms large. New Delhi's last-ditch effort to avert Trump's tit-for-tat tariffs that are, as of now, set to kick in from 2nd of April. Bangladesh Interim Chief Mohammad Yunus is on a 4-day visit to China. He is set to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping amid strained ties with India. Dhaka and Beijing are set to sign pacts on trade and economy. What does this mean? How does this impact New Delhi? We'll talk more on that. Hundreds in Gaza joined rare protests against Hamas rule, largest anti-Hamas protests in Gaza since the war began. Protesters demand Hamas to step down from power. Canada and India look to reset ties amidst the Trump tariff threat, likely to send back envoys and both sides working to ease tensions. A possible meeting between the leaders may also take place after Canada's election. In Turkey, citizens vow to protest even as Erdogan says show will end. Over 1,400 people have been arrested in protests after the Istanbul mayor, who is the opposition's presidential candidate, has been jailed. First story on the show. India has slammed a US report claiming minorities in India face deteriorating treatment. This is the allegation. In fact, the report has also made sweeping allegations saying that sanctions should be levied because of, again, allegations that are not backed by any facts whatsoever. They've talked about the assassination plots or the alleged assassination plots against Sikh separatists. India rightfully has slammed this report. External Affairs Ministry has said that the US Commission on International Religious Freedom should be designated as an entity of concern for such biased statements. Let's get in my colleague Mohammad Ghazali, who will take us through exactly what the MEA statement is and why is it creating such an uproar.
See, the US Religious Freedom Report, which releases its report every year, has been an eye in a storm for the External Affairs Ministry, because the External Affairs Ministry believes that this agency which releases this report every year blames India for exploitation of minorities or atrocities against minorities, especially the Muslim community. Last year in 2024, when this report was released, it also cited violence against communities in northeastern region. And even back then, the External Affairs Ministry had reacted sharply, saying that perhaps this agency doesn't understand the societal complexities of India, that India is a multi-ethnic and multi-religious society. And not knowing the exact realities on ground, perhaps this report is very misleading. Also, the External Affairs Ministry has repeatedly said that this agency is also releasing misleading reports to sort of defame India, because India is also known as the largest democracy as a country. But this time around, in its report, the report has also cited RAW, our secret agency, of plotting assassination on foreign soil. And this agency has also recommended the US government, the Trump administration, to keep India as a country of prior concern. And that is something which has invited a lot of sharp criticism from the External Affairs Ministry. And we also know that the new Trump administration is trying to forge a greater alliance with India in the Indo-Pacific region, knowing very well that how Prime Minister Modi met Mr. Trump days after he took over in the office. Later, Dr. Jaishankar also met the Quad partners during the swearing-in ceremony there, showing that US is certainly going to ignore this report, largely because the report is non-binding. The administration is not legally bound to sort of adopt all the recommendations of this report. But yet again, the External Affairs Ministry has categorically stated that how this entire agency and its report is rather a matter of concern or an entity of concern, while the report says that India should be a country of concern for the US administration.
All right, Mohammad Ghazali, appreciate you putting that in context. As I said, this report has caused an uproar in India, and rightfully so, given its complete lack of facts in saying those allegations. In fact, with a week to go before US President Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs on India kick in on April 2nd, reports indicate that India is open to cutting tariffs on more than half of American imports. That could be over $23 billion in the first phase of a possible trade deal that the two sides have been negotiating and are hopeful of completing at least partially by the end of this year. Trump's reciprocal tariffs are expected to hit 87% of India's total exports, which could be upwards of $66 billion. There's an American trade delegation that's led by Assistant Trade Representative for South and Central Asia. That's Brendan Lynch, who is currently in New Delhi holding trade talks. New Delhi's last-ditch effort to avert the full impact of Trump's tit-for-tat tariffs. Now, what exactly are the extent of the damages, if at all they do happen on India, is something that we need to understand in greater detail before we try and understand what best possible measures India could take. I want to play out this quick report that my colleague Sakshi Bajaj has filed explaining what all is at stake for India's trade and trade sectors given these tariff threats that are looming large.
If the April 2nd reciprocal tariffs announced by US President Donald Trump do indeed go through, then what will be the India impact? That really is the big question. How can reciprocal tariffs impact India? India could lose up to, believe it or not, $7 billion annually from reciprocal tariffs, as per an analysis by Citi Research, while the decline in overall exports may be limited to 3 to 3.5% as per SBI Research's study. So which sectors are likely to be impacted and how are they likely to be impacted? Now remember, the steel and aluminium sectors have already been hit by 25% tariffs, and exporters worth $5 billion in the metal industry are already facing an impact as per initial studies coming in. Besides this, of course, the pharma sector is concerned. As far as the pharma sector is concerned, remember, India is the largest supplier of generic drugs to the US, and India's growing electronics exports also could lose significant market share. The agriculture, jewelry and auto sectors are also likely to be impacted if indeed reciprocal tariffs do go through. Now, analysts expect potential US tariffs may become a catalyst really for reforms from both India and the US, with reports suggesting India is eyeing a tariff cut on more than half of US imports, and US officials in India this week to finalize the bilateral trade framework. The spotlight really is on how reciprocal tariffs will be looked at and whether the talks could go beyond trade.
All right, so viewers, you know that there is going to be an impact and it's going to be significant, as Sakshi was explaining. I'm going to put out those big questions that hopefully we'll try and get answers to in the conversation that I'm going to have with the guest this evening. Whether these will avert tariffs, whether India will be able to cut tariffs, whether India's losses could be at least could be partially reduced is another important aspect of this conversation. And lastly, how much is India prepared in terms of dealing with these tariffs? The sectoral impact is the other aspect of a conversation that I'm going to get Ashok Sajanhar, former ambassador, and Parth Shah, who's the global trade expert and director at Deloitte, to hopefully answer. And gentlemen, while we get your answers, hopefully we'll try and cover as much ground, and let's keep playing those graphics as well as those questions for our viewers to keep understanding what we are talking here. All right, Mr. Shah, let me start with you. Some of the numbers that my colleague was pointing out does indicate that it's not like there will not be an impact. There will be a significant impact that Indian exporters, Indian trade will have to brace for. The question is, how can we mitigate it?
So, thank you very much for having me. It's a very relevant point that you have made. It's going to have a far-reaching impact. The fact remains that when two large economies are sitting on the table discussing certain things, it cannot be a one-way benefit that is going to happen. There will be impact, but what is important is that from India perspective, if we are allowing certain tariff cuts, then we should also negotiate to have greater market access and of course the technical barriers which also becomes a big question when India is exporting to US. There should be talks on reducing that as well.
Okay, Ambassador Sajanhar, the fact is some of these trade discussions do go a bit of back and forth. Both sides come with hawkish positions to try and find some sort of a middle ground. How hopeful are you that before April 2nd, the trade talks that are happening right now could lead to some kind of a positive breakthrough?
Thank you very much for having me. Yes, I think it is, India is negotiating in good faith. India is negotiating in, with goodwill to try to come to a mutually acceptable understanding. You would also have seen, Gaurie, that even in our budget on the 1st of February, we had made some tariff concessions which were targeted particularly to exports from the United States to India. Even when the Prime Minister was meeting Donald Trump on the 13th of February, there was, a reduction of duty on bourbon whiskey, which is of interest to the United States. And more recently, we have cut down on, taxes on Google, 6% tax on Google that was being levied. So I think we are trying to make all efforts to ensure that there are no reciprocal tariffs that are imposed on us. And as you said very correctly, and as Sakshi also in a report said, that there are going to be about $23 billion out of about $46 billion, $43 billion that come to India, exports from the US to India. We are going to cut down on tariffs on those
Yes.
particular items. So US exports to India would increase. We will have the trade surplus that we have of about 35 odd billion dollars, that will come down. And of course, the items that you mentioned, whether it's agriculture, whether it's electronics,
Yes.
whether it is automotive components. The last point that I want to make is,
Yes.
we want to make certain that they will not have a negative impact on our small scale, medium scale industry, and also on agricultural
Okay.
products, and that's why we'll have quotas on
Okay.
the imports that
I
are
was
coming
coming to
into the
just
United
that,
States.
the quotas,
Yes.
but I'm going to come to that in a bit. Before that, there are two things I want to address. One is
Sure.
the fact that the latest S&P Global report that has come out, it came out yesterday, which said that while of course India's exports to the US do constitute about 2.3% of the GDP, there will be an impact. But if you take some of the most contentious issues, which is aluminium and steel, which started the trade war last time around as well, the Indian exposure is actually less than South Korean exposure. Now imagine the size of the Indian economy, the size of the South Korean economy, and then we are actually at a lower impact than Seoul. So which also tells you that one needs to look at this in a more holistic way. Mr. Shah, I want to bring you in on that fact, which is that yes, there will be an impact, but it's not like it's going to be only on India. There are going to be other economies, smaller, with more impact possibly.
That's right. And on impact on other countries, that's one point that I want to make, that of course India has comparatively higher tariff rates when compared to what US levies and what some of the South Asian countries as well levies. But our rates are in line with what is a commitment with WTO. If the impact of tariff or levying tariff is on a particular country, of course there will be impact on other countries as well. The levying extra duty on China can have positive impact on India and so on. So if there is a levy which is happening on particular product only coming from a particular country, it will have impact on other countries as well. Maybe positive, like you mentioned.
Okay. Again, quoting some reports that have come in which say that 87% of India's exports to the US could be impacted or affected rather in varying degrees. But the other side to that is that when trade talks take place, there is always give and take. So if India is going to bring down some duties, it's going to probably give in on some factors regarding US demands. It will also try and have some sort of a leeway when it comes to export of services. And is that really, Ambassador Sajjanar, our big bulwark, where we try and ensure ease of Indian highly qualified, skilled manpower to the US, those barriers being brought down?
Yeah, that is what we'll be looking at, as far as services are concerned, to enhance our exports of services, because even in the area of services, we do have a small trade surplus with the United States. But I think even in the area of goods, Gaurie, we will try to have more access, because there are some non-tariff barriers in the United States. There are also some peaks as far as products of interest to India are concerned. So I'm sure we are negotiating on those also. So I think we will definitely try to have a balanced outcome, so that we also come back with some takes. It's not only gives as far as we are concerned. But then, of course, we'll really have to wait and see as to how it all pans out, and what happens to the reciprocal tariffs, because Mr. Trump is totally unpredictable. There is nothing that can be said, even if there are decent commitments that are made by India, but still he might think that, he has to demonstrate to the world that he's a strong leader, he's
Yes.
a powerful leader, and, he might still go ahead with the tariffs.
Indeed.
But I think this should be also used
Unpredictability
as an
of
opportunity.
these
Last
trade
comment.
talks and the trade scenario is something that not just India but the world is bracing for. This is an important conversation, but given the paucity of time, I need to move on. Mr. Shah, thank you so much for joining me today. Ambassador Sajjanar, there's more that Trump is talking about, and I want to introduce you on that as well, which is that US President Donald Trump has renewed his demand for sweeping election reforms in the US, and he cited Indian electoral system as an example of efficiency and integrity. He cited India and other countries as examples, and in fact, President Trump said that the US now fails to enforce basic necessary election protections employed by modern, developed and developing countries. And said India, they've been trying and tying voter identification to a biometric database, while the US largely relies on self-attestation for citizenship. That's the kind of disconnect that exists between how the Indian election machinery runs and how the American election machinery runs. Ambassador Sajjanar, the fact is India is not just a vibrant but also the largest democracy. The scale at which we are able to conduct our elections and also bring in technology is something that the world is envying us, no less President Trump.
Absolutely. I think it is, India is not only, as you very correctly said, Gaurie, largest democracy. I think India is a veritable role model as far as a democracy is concerned, and particularly, as far as the elections, conduct of free, fair, unbiased elections. That is the linchpin, that is the pivot on which any democracy sort of works and revolves. And Indian, the authenticity of the voters in terms of the credibility of the election, that is very, very strong. And even as far as, once the votes have been cast in terms of counting it, you would remember that even in the presidential election, there are big states like Texas, like California, they continue their counting for weeks on end. And still, there are not absolutely final credible results that are coming out of there. While as far as India is concerned, within a few hours, we have, last election, 650 million people voted, out of a total electorate of 900 million. So about 68% of our electorate voted.
Yes.
And we were able to get the final results in about 4 hours.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Unlike California, which keeps on voting for, keeps on counting for almost a fortnight. I have to leave it there, Ambassador Sajjanar. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
As we talk about President Trump, well, he's found himself wound up in probably the biggest controversy since his administration started, which is the signal controversy. President Trump has reacted to that, saying that everyone is in fact using Signal, and he said much more about how this app is now being used worldwide. Listen in, because this is an important story that has ramifications of national security.
I don't know anything about Signal. I wasn't involved in this, but I just heard about it. And I hear it's used by a lot of groups. It's used by the media a lot. It's used by a lot of the military, and I think successfully. But sometimes somebody can get onto those things. That's one of the prices you pay when you're not sitting in the situation room with no phones on, which is always the best, frankly.
You don't want Signal in the situation room ever. On that note, a quick break. More on the other side. Stay with me.
Hi, it's Phoebe from Auto Trader's monthly electric car giveaway, and we're pleased to say that you've won a brand new electric car.
It's a dream, honestly, it really is a dream. Oh my god. Me and my boyfriend talk about the Auto Trader competition every single month. I was waiting for the know you ever won.
If something in your body doesn't feel right, don't carry the worry of cancer with you. Tests could put your mind at rest until you find out You can't rule it out. Contact your GP practice.
The all-new Tempur Pro, our most adaptive mattress ever. Born from NASA technology, billions of ultra-sensitive cells relieving even more pressure for ultimate comfort and support. Now available with SmartCool technology. Tempur, the future of sleep is here.
Sun Bingo. Are you gonna bingo?
I think I'm gonna bingo. Hey, Charlie64, are you gonna bingo?
Hey, Sassy Sam. Yeah, I'm gonna bingo. Hey, Geordie George, are you gonna bingo?
Not right now, mate. Maybe later?
Okay. Has a 93, are you gonna bingo?
Yeah, I'm defo gonna bingo.
Join the fun at Sun Bingo. Are you gonna bingo?
Shop hundreds of big deals right now at AO. Get savings on electricals big and small from brands like Hisense, Samsung and Dyson. Plus, with finance options available, no wonder we're the UK's most trusted major electrical retailer. Shop now at ao.com.
We know that living with diabetes can make daily life a challenge, and we're here to help.
I felt very low with the diagnosis and very lonely as well and embarrassed.
I think people don't necessarily realise the impact that being diabetic can have on you and the amount of extra decisions you have to make a day through carb counting every single thing you eat.
If you're struggling with the everyday challenges diabetes can bring, become a Diabetes UK member today. Receive this informative welcome pack and Balance magazine.
Balance magazine has been very good in giving me tips to manage my diabetes on a day-to-day basis.
One of the things I was recommended to do was exercise. What motivated me was my love of dance, and I got that back.
Join a community that really understands. Call 0800 035 7605 or go online to become a member for just £3 a month.
Bangladesh Interim Chief Mohammad Yunus is all set for his first meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping as he began his first state visit since taking up the post last year. During the 4-day visit, Bangladesh and China are set to sign several pacts in the areas of labor, economy and technical assistance, and a bunch of other agreements aimed at bringing the two sides closer. And in fact, Bangladesh has said that China is Bangladesh's best friend, closest neighbor, strategic partner, all encomiums that need to be in place to show particularly India that what the China-Bangladesh relationship may look like. Now, what it means and why is this happening? Let's get in Muqtadir Rashid, senior journalist, joining me live from Dhaka. To connect the dots, Muqtadir, always good to have you on the show. Let me try and understand from you that what does the visit, the first state visit to China by Mohammad Yunus signify?
So of course, it's a very important role because China is playing very crucial role in Bangladesh economy and of course for the development of multi-billion projects in Bangladesh. So that is very important. But for the Chinese context, it is also important that Dr. Yunus is not an elected government and he is leading an interim government. For him, it would be, for China, it would be very difficult to go with any major political decision to take. I am worried by this kind of visit because it gives some kind of indication that Dr. Yunus wants to cling on the power for a longer period of time, and that is why he needs to show his muscle by visiting different countries like USA, Europe, and of course the Middle Eastern country, and the China is now. And you saw that the flights has been sent to Bangladesh to carry him.
The message of going to China is very loud and clear to India, isn't it? Bangladesh and India ties
I don't think so.
Have
I
seen
don't think so.
ups and downs. Right now, there is a bit of a strain. The fact that he's chosen China, it sends a message to New Delhi.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Bangladeshi people even don't care to go for any binary, like whether I can have relation with China or India. So I don't. That's not viable for Bangladesh. We should have a relation with both China and India is not our enemy and not the China. So we can have relation with both the countries. And,
India never has inimical relations with Bangladesh, now or in the past, Muqtadir. In fact, India has played such an instrumental role in Bangladesh in the last 50 years. It is the commentary that's come in from Mohammad Yunus's government that's been so shocking in the last 8 months, because of which I asked you, why the decision to go and meet Xi Jinping?
Yeah, it's the way you say it. It looks like that, but I don't think that you have already read the story that Suhasini Haldar wrote. That
30 seconds. Finally, I'll ask you this. Finally,
Narendra Modi did not accept
if
invitation.
Bangladeshi economy is in a bit of a turmoil right now, is it in a position to accept more Chinese loans?
I don't think that would be good for Bangladesh at all. I'm not economist. As a political commentator, I would say Bangladesh should play on its with its pockets. They should not go beyond its control. And the way Dr. Yunus is going, I think it's all about his political ambition. And I'm sure he wants to flex his muscle and show the world. And of
absolutely.
course,
he's flexing his muscles. You said no message, but there is a message. Muqtadir, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks much for taking out the time and joining me today. On that note, a quick break. We come back with more on the other side, including what's the latest in Turkey.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
In terms of the strategic relationship and the intelligence arrangements between India and the United States, to what extent is it premised on perhaps an expansionist or an expanding China and the Asia-Pacific region?
You know, the ties between our two countries, the United States and India, go very, very far back. And so what we're continuing to see is a strengthening of that partnership and recognizing that the mutual interests of both of our countries are centered around peace, prosperity, freedom, and security. So now as we see a new administration coming in with President Trump's leadership in the United States, of course, Prime Minister Modi's long-standing leadership here in India, we have two leaders of our two great countries who are very good friends and who are very focused on how we can strengthen those shared objectives and those shared interests.
The other big international talking point is obviously the situation between Russia and Ukraine, and we're all optimistic, and I've covered the war 3 times. Be that as it may, if President Putin doesn't come on the table with the peace agreement which has been proposed by the United States, can Washington indefinitely keep arming Ukraine and, in a sense, allowing them to continue their fight?
President Trump is seeing this ongoing conflict with very clear eyes. And he has made his position and his priority very clear, which is to bring about an end to this war. So he is focused on peace. The negotiations have just begun. He's looking forward to success in those negotiations, not for himself, but for the cause of peace and to stop the killing of innocent and taking of innocent lives there. So he has the best negotiators working with both the Ukrainians and with Russia and with Putin. And we look forward to seeing the continued progress that we've already seen over a very short period of time. I think it's important to point out that under the previous administration, during which this war began, there
We now focus on what's unfolding in Gaza. Well, there's an unprecedented series of protests that have erupted against Hamas, with hundreds of Palestinians risking their lives to demand an end to the war and the group's oppressive rule. Demonstrators are chanting Hamas out. They want peace. But can they get peace? Can they be able to relieve themselves from the clutches of this terror organization? This report tells you the story.
As the war rages on in Gaza, a rare and powerful display of defiance emerges from the very heart of the conflict. In the northern Gaza Strip, hundreds of Palestinians flood the streets, demanding an end to the war and to Hamas's brutal rule. Chants echo across Gaza, Hamas out, we want to eat, and the people want to overthrow Hamas. This rare wave of resistance is met with force, as Hamas militants attempt to crush the uprising. Under the watchful eyes of Hamas, these brave citizens are risking everything to voice their pain. A message from the rubble: enough with the war. The protests spread first Beit Lahia, then Jabalia, and now across Gaza. In the face of death and destruction, their message is clear. They want peace, not power struggles. These courageous voices demand that Hamas end the suffering, step down, and let the people rebuild their lives. As Gaza's greatest tragedy unfolds, the people are speaking out for change. Will their voices be heard, or will silence continue to reign? Bureau Report, NDTV World.
All right, while we look at what's really unfolding in Gaza, let's also now get you viewers a story that's likely to set the stage for Tesla's entry into India, which is the fact that Tata Motors has been instrumental in providing major equipment possibly and becoming an important vendor to Tesla's EV ecosystem. Remember, Tesla has been looking to enter the Indian market, but that hasn't been the case the last couple of months. But what the latest is that with Tata Group, in fact, several of Tata Group's companies becoming important players in the Tesla EV ecosystem, sets the stage for one, the Tesla Group to enter India, and secondly also for India to become that important a player when it comes to creating an entire electric vehicle ecosystem. So what this means for India as a potential EV hub, what this means for Tesla's ecosystem. Let's now get in an important guest joining me this evening to talk more about the implications of this, which is Hormoz Sorabji, editor of Autocar India. So how do you see this, the fact that Tata Group is likely to possibly, many may believe, even pave the way for Tesla's entry? Because if they have a vendor ecosystem in place, they would probably enter the market next.
Well, I think, we just got to hold ourselves back. I know it's very exciting. Two companies that are loved, Tata in India and Tesla in America. Well, I don't know how much Tesla is being loved these days, especially in the last few months. But I think, Tata becoming a supplier, we have to see, at what level of the supplier ecosystem they're a part of. You've got a lot of Indian suppliers. So, Tata is just another supplier. I mean, for example, Tata does, let's say, supply products and services to other global OEMs. I think TCS, for example, does a lot of work for the Stellantis group globally. So it's nothing unusual. I don't think it's anything, that is absolutely groundbreaking in that sense. And also, just by an Indian company supplying to Tesla doesn't necessarily mean that they are coming to India. For example, Sona Comstar is one company that's been supplying to Tesla for years. But obviously they're looking at India as, let's say,
if Indian companies become important in the supply chain of or the global supply chain of Tesla, then it makes a case for the company to evaluate India options that much more seriously. That was the predicate.
It does. But we also have to see what model they can bring. I don't see them setting up shop very soon. What could be an interesting possibility is if they do contract manufacturing. Now that would be, quite something. If Tata Motors or Tata Group, for example, did contract manufacturing for Tesla, in which case Tesla did not have to invest in setting up a plant and all the tooling for it, and they use some of Tata Motors' existing capacity, to produce cars over here. Now that would be a big deal, but I think just being a supplier, it really is something which it's not unusual, as I said, for Indian companies to supply to global companies for global markets. So, but I think Tesla, one needs to just hold back on it. I think Tesla is facing its worst period ever. Sales have been dropping everywhere. In Europe, it's down 50%. In Germany, particularly, it's 70%. Tesla showrooms and cars are getting vandalized. I think everyone knows the reason. It's Elon Musk's complete alignment with the Trump administration, which hasn't been appreciated in a lot of places. So I think as well, the stock prices has completely tumbled. So Tesla isn't in good shape right now. And I don't think at this point, India is a big enough market or an exciting market to enter. Yeah.
That's an important point, that there are several factors at play, of course, which decide what is the right time to enter any market. Finally, Mr. Sarabji, very quickly, when we talk about the EV ecosystem in India, it's still in a developing phase. Do you think it could give an impetus for India to become an EV hub? I mean, Tesla is only part of the story. The fact is that how will India get on to be the EV hub is the part.
Well, I think, again, I don't think Tesla, you basically need volumes and scale. So you have to look at the manufacturers that can bring you volumes and scale in the EV market or segment to really grow the supply system. I don't think Tesla is a company that is going to come in with huge volumes. You've got to be looking at other players. You've got to be looking at, what Hyundai is planning to do, what Kia is planning to do, what our local players are planning to do, especially Mahindra, which has got huge bookings for its 2 new EVs. So as you get the volume, you can invest more and more in localization. And finally, it's the battery cell, which is still not localized, which is still being imported, which finally, should be localized.
Absolutely. We leave it there. Hormuz Sarabji, editor of Autocar, joining us for Tesla's possible entry into India, given that Tata Group now is playing a major role in the company's supply chain. On that note, a quick break. More on the other side. Stay with me.
At AJ Bell, we're all about making investing easy. It's why Which rate no other investment platform higher for ease of use. Open an award-winning account today.
Tired of freestanding wardrobes that just don't fit? At Sharps, we design bespoke fitted furniture like no one else, transforming bedrooms into beautifully organised spaces. Our exclusive Space Plus system means twice the storage space of freestanding wardrobes. Plus our industry-beating 15-year guarantee. The Sharps half-price spring sale is now on. Book your free no-obligation design visit today at sharps.co.uk.
Sign up and start saving with Quidco today. Get cashback every time you shop on over 5,000 brands. It always pays to Quidco.
Family life. It's made of ups and downs, and those little moments. But should the unthinkable happen to you? Life insurance from Legal & General can help look after monthly bills, the roof over their heads, childcare costs, and most importantly, your family. Because no one protects more families in the UK than us. Premiums start from £5 a month and they never rise. Plus there's a £120 gift card after you apply. Legal in general. Ensure life goes on.
When I woke up, they said, Alyssa, you've got leukemia. We found out that the chemo wasn't working. So at that point, it was like, I'm gonna die. My consultant was looking for these clinical trials, and she found this one at Great Ormond Street. I'm cancer-free now.
Curing Alyssa was a world first, but cancer is still the biggest killer of children in the UK. Will you help us do more? Search Gosh Care to give £3 a month and help build a new children's cancer centre at Great Ormond Street Hospital, a home for breakthrough research with world-class facilities to help beat cancer for more children. Together, with your kind support, we can help save lives and transform children's cancer care for decades to come. Text CARE to 70125 to give £3 a month and help build our new children's cancer centre. Together, we can beat cancer for more children.
It feels good knowing that your future's in hand. Evlo can offer you a loan from £1,000 to £15,000, whether it's for home improvements or for some of life's big moments. Evlo looks beyond your credit score and always takes a case-by-case approach. Visit evlo.co.uk to get your conditional decision in minutes.
So what's happening in Turkey? Thousands of people have now come out, and in fact they've turned out for the 7th night of protests, which has so far seen more than 1,400 people being detained, including students, journalists, lawyers. Anti-government protesters say they plan to keep up the campaign of demonstrations that have been triggered by the jailing of Istanbul's mayor. This is the biggest such opposition action in over a decade. Despite mass arrests and clashes with police, the nightly unrest began last Wednesday when the city's mayor, who is seen as the President Erdogan's main political rival, was arrested on corruption charges. Rights groups, the UN, have all condemned the arrest and the use of force by police on these protesters. In fact, the mayor said the allegations against him were politically motivated, a claim that the Turkish president has denied. But is democracy in Turkey now in deep danger? That's the question I'm going to put forth to the panelists joining me, which is Professor James Dorsey. He's a Middle East expert, adjunct senior fellow at the Singapore University, Rajaratnam School of International Studies, and I also have Professor Harsh Pant of the ORF as well. In fact, let me start with you, Mr. Dorsey. The fact that these protests have been unprecedented, the fact that they are coming in at a time when Erdogan's 22-year-old reign is really in jeopardy. How do you see these protests from here on, the fact that they continue despite almost a week?
Well, I think that they are as resilient in their will to take the risk of protesting as they were in 2013 during the Gezi Park protests. This is a serious crisis for Erdogan. Now, having said that, Turkish democracy has been on the slide, certainly since the failed coup attempt in Turkey in 2016. And what we're seeing now is a serious response to that slide in democracy at a moment at which Erdogan is uncertain about his political future and is trying to shape it with the arrest and charging of Ekrem İmamoğlu, the mayor of Istanbul.
Indeed. Professor Pant, you want to comment on the fact that when it comes to giving lectures, Turkey is probably the first one giving lectures to the world over when it comes to democracy, freedom of speech and expression and so on and so forth. But look at what is happening in its own house.
Indeed, I think Erdogan is now facing one of the most serious crises he has faced in recent times, although one must admit that he retains control over most levers of power in Turkey, and he has shown incredible resilience himself in ensuring that all kinds of movements peter out and that the opposition to him is sidelined. But I think in the Istanbul mayor who's being now targeted, he has now a formidable adversary. and a challenger who is actually challenging the very foundations of what he stands for. And at a time when Turkish economy is not doing very well, there are huge, there's a serious problem. So, the slide towards authoritarianism, the lack of basic freedoms, and the challenge to the basic norms of democracy that we have seen in Turkey, they continue to resonate in more ways than one. And I do think that is the biggest challenge for Erdogan and his approach both to domestic affairs and foreign policy.
Indeed. And Mr. Dossi, one may think that some of these protests that are coming in and these protesters, they're actually speaking up against President Erdogan's last 10 years, where he's really, as Professor Pant said, really moved towards authoritarianism. All voices of dissent have been cracked down. He's really ensured that his hold on power is almost complete. And that's a huge transition for Turkey, given what it was just about a decade back. Are these people protesting against Erdogan's rule more than anything else?
Well, first of all, this is a process that has been going on since 2011 and really started with a battle over between an Erdogan ally at the time, a preacher who ultimately went into exile in the United States and has died in recent years, but nonetheless was a preacher who had enormous influence within the Turkish bureaucracy. And those two men split for all practical purposes in 2011. And you've seen the slide in democracy occur ever since, and accelerated by the failed coup in 2016. Indeed, this is a revolt against his authoritarian and autocratic rule. And I think, as my colleague said, it is true that Erdogan holds all the levers of power, but this is probably the greatest challenge to his rule, alongside the failed coup and the 2013 protests.
Pant, how do you see these protests in terms of moving on from here? Do you see them probably having the full circle, where some of the other countries in that region have seen, for want of a better word, revolutions, which came from these protests and similar protests? Do you envisage a similar road for Turkey as well? You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. It's difficult to say, Gaurie, because we know that in the past there have been several attempts, there have been several protests, there have been several movements in Turkey, and as Professor Dossi was suggesting, it has been a constant flow of disaffection with Erdogan, and we saw how he manipulated the last elections. So in a sense, his ability to manipulate, his ability to centralize power and to use that power against a wider democratic mandate and movement has been quite unprecedented. But I do think that what these, the resilience of these protests that we have had so many people behind bars, so much, and he has publicly stated his position that he looks this as a very serious public challenge. Despite those statements and despite the actions of the state machinery, the people of Turkey, Istanbul, they keep on protesting, they keep on turning out in huge numbers,
Yes.
and the resilience that they have shown perhaps tells you that the disaffection is growing, and that you should be careful about.
Indeed. And as we wrap this up, gentlemen, I'm just going to put out one of the slogans that has been really popular with the placards in the protests is, "If we burn, you'll burn with us." Of course, that's a message to Erdogan and his regime, which is really facing immense pressure right now from these protesters. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me today on India Global. And in fact, I'm going to stay with this region. We played out that report for you as to what really is happening in Gaza. There are people now asking Hamas out. They're chanting that. Let's get in Colonel Rajiv Agarwal to understand how significant those protests are. We've talked about the protests in Turkey. We move on to the protests in Gaza. How significant are they, Colonel Agarwal? Unmute yourself, please.
Unique or unprecedented or a surprise because of the way these strikes have started from 18th of March when Israel revoked the ceasefire and started the strikes on 18th and the ground operations on 20th of March. They were extremely punitive. The entire 3 sections of Gaza Strip were bombed, and as per reports, more than 400 or 500 people were killed in a day. So there will always be a section of people who are, trying to come up saying that enough is enough and they want to lead a life. But I would say at the same time that it is not representative of the entire population of Gaza. So if we say that these 3 protests in 3 different sections of Gaza representative of the Gaza population, that may not be correct, because Hamas still holds a very, very strong sway over the population in Gaza.
Indeed, it does. Colonel Agarwal, thank you so much for giving your quick take on that story that I'm going to probably look at later in the days to come. But shifting focus now to Canada, which heads to polls later this month. And it seems Canada and India are now taking steps to cool down some of the tensions that came out due to Justin Trudeau's love for Khalistani separatists. Even considering sending back envoys after tit-for-tat expulsions that took place last year. Some reports indicate that there could possibly even be a meeting between Prime Minister Modi and his Canadian counterpart, who will of course be chosen after the elections of April 28th. How significant these reports are, and is the India-Canada relationship now on the upswing? Let's get in Terry Miluski, who's a senior journalist, joining me from Canada. Terry, how significant are these reports, and how optimistic are you that the India-Canada relationship is now on its repair trajectory?
Well, I think that the developments are significant, number one. And number two, I think that they make obvious sense. It's a pretty feeble performance of two giant trading nations that they only have $8 billion in annual trade between them. It's long been the intent of both governments to improve that. And now, of course, there is an additional incentive to do so because they're both going to be hit by Trump tariffs. So they're looking for other customers and other buyers. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that as significant and as hopeful as these signs might be, there will, of course, be a meeting if Mr. Modi does indeed appear as a guest at the G7 meeting in Alberta in June. It would be embarrassing if he didn't even meet his host, whoever that may be, because, of course, there will be a Canadian election between now and then on April the 28th. So we don't know for sure that Mr. Carney will be the Prime Minister. We'll see. But despite all of this, there are a lot of problems in the way of improving relations. To wit, there's this little matter of murder. And that has not been resolved. I don't think that any Prime Minister, whether it's Mr. Carney or his rival, Mr. Poilievre, can just sweep it aside and tell the police, look, it's politically a little inconvenient right now to be accusing the Indian diplomats of being involved in murder. Can we just quietly drop this? That's not how it's going to work at all. And on the Indian side, they still have to deal, of course, with very similar allegations of criminal activity. Indeed, a murder plot by the Indian government in New York. And they have not really denied those allegations. There are charges laid by the FBI and Department of Justice.
That's one aspect. That's one aspect of the relationship that probably the next Canadian leader, whoever is, will require more bilateral conversations. But the fact is, you feel that trade is now the fulcrum that will probably bring the India-Canada relationship closer, given that April 2nd tariffs deadline is looming large. How much do you think that will be an impetus in terms of increasing the trade relationship, which of course then could repair the larger bilateral relationship?
Yes, when there's money on the table, and a great deal of money and a great deal of trade, it's amazing, isn't it, how quickly enemies become friends. And Canada and India have been enemies at the time that all of this developed, at the time that Hardeep Singh Nijjar was assassinated gangland style in British Columbia in September of 2023. At that time, there was already a negotiation underway for a free trade agreement between Canada and India. Well, what happened to that? Obviously, it was shelved. Diplomatic relations went into deep freeze. Now, I think there's a window of opportunity with a new Prime Minister. We don't have to deal with Justin Trudeau anymore. for an exchange of diplomats to at the top level to resume, and for Indian diplomats to return to Canada and vice versa. That opportunity is on the table, and there is a pending trade agreement. They didn't throw it in the trash, they just put it on the shelf. They can take it off the shelf.
You think that trade pact is now going to become center stage? That trade agreement is going to become very important?
Oh, yes. I think that it will miraculously sweep aside a lot of these other matters. As troubling as they are, they can sidetrack them. I don't mean get rid of them. I don't mean sweep them aside. They can't do that for the reasons I've outlined. But they can put them on a sidetrack and no longer regard all of that unpleasantness as an obstacle to better trade relations, which I think both sides want.
Differences outside of trade will not be in a position to hijack the relationship. That's essentially what it could end up. Finally, very quickly, running out of time, how important do you think these issues could be in the run-up to the election? There's now an election campaign that's underway.
Well, they are already important. In the last couple of days, we've seen more news about alleged Indian interference in the Conservative leadership campaign. There's not a lot of substance to all of this, not yet anyway. There may be more, but it's definitely affecting the campaign. But what's really affected the campaign, of course, is the arrival of President Trump, and that has switched the Conservatives from being the obvious leaders and the prospective winners of the election by far, to suddenly in a neck-and-neck contest. So it's going to be interesting.
Interesting indeed, Terry. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining me on an early morning from Canada. On that note, completely timed out in this edition of India Global. Thanks so much for watching.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you.
It feels good knowing that your future's in hand. Evlo can offer you a loan from £1,000 to £15,000, whether it's for home improvements, new appliances, a car, or for some of life's big moments. So even if you've had problems with credit before, Evlo looks beyond your credit score and always takes a case-by-case approach. Visit evlo.co.uk to get your conditional decision in minutes. Evlo, your future in your hands.
Caring for your cat is a lifelong commitment, and with the advanced nutrition of Purina One, you could see a visible difference in just 3 weeks. Your cat could benefit from great appetite, higher energy, healthier digestion, shinier coat, and brighter eyes. Try Purina One today.
With PlusNet, great value broadband isn't just about price, it's also about speed. This kind of speed. Oh, there's a router. Get full fibre from $25.99 a month with speeds up to 900 megabits. Fast broadband you can rely on. That's a plus. Call us now or visit plus.net for our best price. Ends 2nd of April.
In People's Postcode Lottery's April draws, a share of £25.4 million must be won. Sign up before midnight on the 31st of March.
Family life. It's made of ups and downs, and those little moments. But should the unthinkable happen to you? Life insurance from Legal & General can help look after monthly bills, the roof over their heads, childcare costs, and most importantly, your family. Because no one protects more families in the UK than us. Premiums start from £5 a month and they never rise. Plus there's a £120 gift card after you apply. Legal & General. Ensure life goes on.
At Direct Line, we know that for multi-property landlords, sometimes the tiniest of things can turn into way bigger problems. From niggly contract issues to keeping up with ever-changing legislation. That's why Direct Line's landlord insurance offers a 24/7 legal helpline as standard. Because a call with someone could help to make the hairiest of problems feel that little bit smoother. Search Direct Line Landlord Insurance. We're on it.
Those weeks that he came in, with the 3 weeks that I could be his little girl again, nothing I can do will repay Marie Curie for doing that for me. The amazing gift that they gave me was I was there at his last breath. He was there for my first. I will give everything back that I can to the hospice that gave me so much.
Give better end-of-life care to all. Get your free will guide today.
I gotta be me.
What in here?
What else can
Sauce up your sandwich with Walker's Heinz ketchup flavour crisps.
When you paint by feeling, you can come home to a blooming good day. Change starts here. Dulux.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Southern View, I'm Veera Raghav. Lots lined up on the show, including our special focus on the Mohanlal starter L2E Empuran amidst a Sabarimala prayer controversy. But first, the headlines we're tracking this up. A day after his meeting with Home Minister Amit Shah, AIDMK Chief Yedappadi Palaniswamy does not rule out the possibility of an alliance with the BJP for the 2026 Tamil Nadu elections. Will all sections of his party rally behind him? In Karnataka, BJP expels party MLA Basanagowda Patil Yatnal for repeatedly hitting out at BS Yediyurappa and party president BY Vijendra. Is this a clear message from the top over who's in charge in Karnataka? Black is beautiful. Yes, ma'am, it is. Kerala Chief Secretary's bold statement receives widespread support as she hits out at stereotypes on dark skin, says black color is the all-pervasive truth of the universe. First up to our special focus this evening, director Prithviraj Sukumaran's L2E Empuran, starring Mohanlal, is all set to hit the screens. All eyes on what's been reported as Malayalam cinema's most expensive film. L2E is a sequel to the 2019 super hit Lucifer. It stars Mohanlal along with the director Prithviraj Sukumaran himself, Manju Warrier and Tovino Thomas amongst the top star cast. The release amidst a controversy after Mohanlal offered a special puja for his friend and film star Mammootty's speedy recovery at Sabarimala. A reported receipt of that puja showing Mammootty's real name Muhammad Kutti and his birth star went viral, and a social media influencer questioned why prayers were offered in a Hindu temple for Mammootty. However, there was a sharp reaction and the influencer later deleted his post after several people pushed back. Mohanlal has also categorically asked what's wrong with offering prayers for his friend and that it's purely personal. He spoke about the controversy and the film along with the director to my colleague Abir Adar.
After Lucifer becomes a big hit, so there is a scope for the Empuran. And Empuran is if it's a big hit, there's a scope for the third part. And definitely, as he said, this is a very key film. It's a very important film for our industry. So Kerala, entity-wise, it's a small place, but we are coming out with good films, and people should watch our films. Now there are so many platforms they can watch Malayalam films. It'll be dubbed in Tamil, Telugu. But as he said, this is a visual treat. We tried our best to make this film. When you watch the film only, you'll know what we spend this scene on this film. And for a Malayalam film, it's a big film.
When are we going to see you and Mammootty sir together? What is happening about the film? Because everybody is
we are working on a film right now.
Yes, I know.
That's to complete. We had to shoot it in Visakhapatnam, and Mammootty has to shoot in the UK. It's a big film. So we'll finish the film by May, June. So you can watch it by September, October, yes.
And you recently went to Sabarimala temple and, worshipped there, and also for your friend Mammootty. I mean, tell me a little about your friendship, because everybody talks about that friendship. I mean, we all have grown up seeing you all.
No, I happen to be in Sabarimala. So it's a ritual. This is called giving his name and his star. They'll do a puja.
Okay.
So I given mine, my mother, my wife. Then I thought, okay, I'll give it to you.
That's so sweet.
Unfortunately or fortunately, it came out.
Fortunately, I'm sure.
This is not the first time either one of them have done something like this that I know personally.
I'm sure.
This time it made the news, that's all.
Yeah, it just came out. So working together after so many years, how is it like always being on set together?
We have done around 50-55 films.
But after so many years, you're coming 16 years?
Most of every week we used to meet or we used to talk. Maybe in a couple of, maybe in 2-3 days, every 2-3 days we make a phone call. It is nothing. It's really very good friends.
Okay, my last question. I swear my last question. To you, when you are directing somebody of that caliber, you have done that before. It's not the first time. What are the pointers that you keep in your head, or he is just another actor? Because, he's a legend.
The reason he's a legend is that he makes you feel he's just another actor. So it's very easy to direct the legends. The legends are the easiest to direct because the fact that they are easy to direct is why they are the legends.
I agree with you. Thank you so much. Thank you for talking to us. It's not every day that we get to talk to you all. Thank you.
Well, legends are easy to direct, says Prithviraj Sukumaran. So for a quick conversation on the film that's all set to hit the screens and the controversy around the Sabarimala Puja, joining me this evening, Rahul Ishwar, author and activist, K.A. Shaji, documentary filmmaker, and also movies trade analyst from Mumbai, Girish Wankare. Thanks to all three of you for joining me this evening. Rahul, we'll talk about the film itself in just a bit because I think it's a very important film for Malayalam cinema from the business point of view. But first, to get the controversy out of the way, it is unfair to even question an actor or anyone for that matter for offering personal prayers for anyone, irrespective of what faith.
Kerala, Sabarimala is one of the most shining examples of religious harmony and spiritual unity in India. Even Lord Ayyappa's best friend is a Muslim. His name is Vavar. Crores of Hindus, when they go to Sabarimala, they religiously and spiritually offer their respect in Vavar Mosque and Velitha Church before they go to Sabarimala. That is what Lord Ayyappa taught us, and for the past 1,000 years we have been following it. And Mammootty and Mohanlal are like brothers. Mohanlal calls Mammootty Ichaka, which roughly translated into senior brother in Malayalam. So Mohanlal doing that particular puja for Mammootty has been hailed all round. And 99% of the Muslim brothers went on something like a condemning spree to Abdullah, and Sri O. Abdullah had to delete his post and run away. So I don't think he represents the mainstream. It is only a fringe fanatic, which every community has. Our community has people like Yedi Narasimhan and Satwi Prachi. They have people like O. Abdullah. So this controversy should not be taken seriously. Mammootty and Mohanlal are shining examples of interpersonal relationship, and the larger Kerala secular or pluralistic or harmonious, whichever name you want to call, that's okay. You can call it Gandhiji, Maulana Azad, Mahatma Gandhi friendship. You can call it Ayyappa, Vavar friendship. But that harmony is the soul of Kerala, and that is what makes us unique. And even Mohanlal remembering Mammootty, Muhammad Kuti is his real name, and Vishakham his star sign, and offering prayer